All right, Wargaming enthusiasts, we're going to look and ask this question, build this Tactica checklist from a very high level. We're not jumping into specific systems right now, be that Warhammer 40K, Battletech, X-Wing miniatures, God Tier, Chain of Command, Wings of Glory, Pacific Rim. All fantastic systems that I enjoy. But in these wargaming systems that involve units that move on a fixed board, that involve phases and turns of the game, that involve dice or cards controlling the random, and with a different mission structure to create that narrative, there are certain fundamentals that are always the same. And in our quest to become the best player that we can, as you understand these fundamentals, you can increase the chances of winning the game. Can never be fully guaranteed, because if both players are equal and both players have a similar army in the mission or battle force or armada, whatever we're going to play, there always is a random aspect to the game. I like to blame the dice all the time, but occasionally the dice do kind of throw us for a curve, and occasionally the dice do kind of put us in a place where, hey, I did everything right, but I lost because of the dice. On a side note, I find the player is the one who makes the least amount of mistakes. So I want to cut down on my mistakes, and I want to be able to be in a position mentally in my mind with the system that I'm playing to be able to see your mistakes, And I want to be tactically on the table in a position to capitalize on your mistakes. One of the best tournament players that I ever had a really, really good fortune to go against, playing Dark Angels in the 40K tournament scene, a lot of players discounted him because they were like, at the time, Dark Angels are weak sauce. They're really not that good. But he was able to consistently beat me. And not just when I was playing kind of my Tricknology armies or themed armies. I was bringing armies where it's like, Fritz, you're dragging down the team score. Enough with this like space elf, space magic type stuff. Bring a decent list, bro, because we're all getting points for the team and you need to represent. So then I bring the Black Templars. Then I bring my space bugs. I bring the Tyranids. I bring my solid armies. And I was playing against this gentleman, and he's crushing me. And he wasn't just crushing me because he was a better player than me. Absolutely. But better players that beat me, I can often and usually tell why they've beaten me. They've outfoxed me. They've outsmarted me. This tournament player, he was capitalizing on my mistakes that I didn't even realize I was making on the tabletop. And I'm not talking about rules mistakes, getting them wrong. I'm talking about like maneuvering and positioning and unit synergy that I just missed. So that's the second place we want to be, where when our opponent makes a mistake, we want to minimize our mistakes. And when our opponent makes a mistake, we want to just hammer them. We want to drop that warhammer and just crush them on the table. But how do we get there? So the first part, that's what we're going to look at in this vlog, and then we're going to follow up and I'll push them up to the channel and bundle them under a playlist. The first thing is looking at this as a brand new system. You need to understand the rules. You need to understand the flow of the game, because the flow of the game, the turns of the game, when to act, how to act, that's where you're going to learn how not to make mistakes, and where you're going to learn based on the phase that you're in that your opponent is going to make mistakes. Now, by learning the rules of the game, I don't mean having them memorized. I would say for Warhammer, and I would say for Battletech, Chain of Command, for most of the systems that I play, I'm really kind of thinking now, I do have most of the rules memorized just based on longevity of playing. But there are times where I have to look something up, or there are times where I'm not really sure that my opponent, something that their army or unit does, and it's like, hey, what does that do? So I'm not talking about memorizing the rules, although if you can, because that's a natural talent, or you've put in so much time that you have, or you have a photographic memory, absolutely. We need to get to a point where we understand the phase of the game and we understand how it works. Now, the easiest way to do this, not always the most efficient, but the easiest and probably the most fun, is to just play games. Open up the rulebook, go through the phases with your friend, play some games, and learn. That's the most organic. The challenge here, though, is we're looking to cut down. We're looking to get a little competitive. We're looking to cut down on our learning curve. So if I can play 20 games of BattleTech to learn that, I know I said I wasn't going to jump into systems, God tier, whatever it's going to be. If I'm going to play 20 games organically, naturally, in that time period that it takes me to learn from those 20 games, could I cut it down to 10? I won't say like 5 or 3, but could I cut it down? Because I want to get as good as I can, as fast as I can, so I can start winning every week and beating my friends. The way to do that in understanding the rules is to isolate one phase of the game with a force, with your units, and this is often done with a friend, and do it over and over again. Okay, Fritz, what do you mean? We're going to jump into a system. We're going to jump in here to BattleTech so you can visualize it. BattleTech, you deploy your forces, or wherever your forces are based on the turn. You roll for initiative. The player that wins initiative, the opposite player moves one piece first. So we roll for initiative, I win. 2d6, whoever scores the highest wins initiative. I win initiative. That means you move your first mech, your first piece. So you do that. Then I move my mech. We trade back and forth. It's not a you go, I go system. It's an alternating system. What this means is if I win initiative, I always have the advantage of being able to react to your movement, to see where you move first. It also means based on the number of units that we have, sometimes you'll move multiple units if you're outnumbered, I will get to move one piece or one group last. So you're going to move everything on the table. I'll have one mech or one group left. I get to move. That's pretty powerful, and that represents that aspect of the game. That's the initiative / movement phase. When we're done, then we move into a shooting phase. Then we move into physical attack phases. Then we move into the artillery phase and other rules. So I can get good, and I don't want to make mistakes in the movement phase, and I want to capitalize on the movement phase, make the game about, and this is where it helps to sit down with a friend, I'm going to sit down, move my pieces, then you move your pieces. Then we're going to reset. We're going to do it again. Or we'll deploy in a different place, and we'll move a few phases. Just play out that phase of the game 3, 4, 5 times and ask yourself the question, okay, I moved my pieces, you moved your pieces. We're not going to move into the shooting phase, but if we did, kind of what would happen? All right, I'd get hit here, maybe you'd get hit here, maybe you'd double team and fire your 3 mechs on my 1 mech. It would take catastrophic damage, let's say, and now that piece retreats. What do I have left? Let's go to the next phase. Play through those phases and really look and say, where's the mistake? A great example is deployment. Deployment is really important. It's not just about squeezing and fitting your models on the table. It's about being able to move out and put yourself in an optimal position to gain momentum over your opponent. So deploy your models, turn 1, move out. Have your opponent deploy. Turn 1, they move out. Then pause and say, well, did I do that correctly? Like, did I take advantage of terrain? Did I take advantage of positioning? Am I dominating the center of the table? Because that's very, very important in a fixed wargaming table system. If I did, great. If I didn't, how could I do better? Or if my opponent countered me and got to somewhere before I did, could I have prevented it? Now, sometimes you can't. Sometimes you miss it. But by doing this and isolating every aspect of the game and then replaying it, kind of like a training session between you and your friend, that's how you learn very, very fast. Now, honestly, it's not as fun as playing a full game, but it has the duality of being able to fit in and just focus on that one area. Again, looking at everything to say the player, generally speaking, the player who makes the least amount of mistakes wins. So if I can minimize my mistakes, I can encourage my opponent to make mistakes, but can I see and capitalize the mistakes that they make?